Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. I'm trying to get my seat all situated.
It's been a while since we've been sitting here.
Yes, and we're glad to be back. We had to record a few episodes in advance because we were doing a lot of traveling the last few weeks, and so we're glad to be back in the studio and glad to be back with you. So we just wrapped up our February prayer challenge, and it was amazing. So we ended up with 452 people that signed up for a specific day and time for us to pray for them in February. We kept running out of space on our calendar, so we just kept
add.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm sure we missed people along the way because there were several that would respond or, reach out and say, there's no more dates left,
Right.
and we would add some, and so anyway, it ended up getting up to 452, and there were some days that there were between 35 and 40 on the list for that day. But we took the time to pray for each one, and we are just trusting God with those prayers. And also, if you missed, because I know these last few days, and in fact, I think even yesterday, somebody reached out and said, there's no more times left, and I was like,
It's March.
There's no more times left in February, but I mean, I say that kind of jokingly, but at the same time, this doesn't mean that we stop praying for people.
Right.
February's over, no more prayers.
Right.
I mean, look, if you reach out to us and you because I know that some people, they look at like social media posts that were posted weeks ago, and they just pop up on their feed. And sometimes I don't know why it happens that way, but maybe that's because God just needs you to see that encouragement. And so you reach out and you just say, I need prayer for my marriage. And that's actually happened multiple times over the last week or so.
Yep.
And we didn't even send the sign-up sheet because we knew there were no more spots. And so, but that doesn't mean that we didn't pray for you, and we're not. And it doesn't mean we're not going to pray for you. So look, anytime you reach out, if you comment on a social media post or you send us a direct message and it says, I need you to pray for my marriage, we do it. And so we want you to know that we'll continue praying. So anytime you reach out, you're being prayed for. The other thing is we have had a ton of just new people on our email list and new signups on social media and stuff like that. So we also, in our podcast, there's been a lot of podcast growth recently too, and so we just want to say welcome if you're kind of new to the Redeemed Marriage. And one of the things that I think that people don't realize that is such a big help, and we don't do this very often or ask people to do this very often, but if you follow us or if you listen to us or have listened to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even on YouTube, it would really help a lot if you would, like on YouTube, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then also if you're Spotify or Apple Podcast in particular, if you would give it a rating, click that little 5-star button, assuming we're 5 stars to you, and then also if you just have a moment to leave a review, but. The reason why those things helps, it's not because it makes us feel good, although it does make us feel good, but that's not the reason. There's this weird thing in the world called an algorithm, and I know that some of you hear it and you go, I have no idea what that means. We don't either. But we do know that anytime we get ratings and reviews or people subscribe to our channel on YouTube, all of those things, they actually cause the algorithm to put it in front of more people. And that's the only reason why we ask you to do it. It's not for us. We don't get paid or anything like that from it. It's because we know that just randomly our stuff will get put in front of other people. And so we just want you to help us to get our message of hope out there into the world, and it doesn't cost you anything except a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes, literally seconds of your time to click a button. And so, if you would do that, that would bless us. So thanks for that. All right, so today, here's where we're going with our, maybe even our next couple of episodes. We have recently gotten tons and tons of questions that have come in. Now, these come from lots of different things, all right? So we actually have we have like a QR code that people will scan when they come to our event. So if we speak at a public, or speak at some sort of a conference, or speak at a date night, or, speak at somebody's church, there's a QR code and it goes to a place where it literally says, ask us anything. And so people will submit questions, and so we'll get a lot of questions there. We also have a mentoring group that if you've been through our marriage coaching or a retreat or an intensive, you have an opportunity to be a part of our mentoring group, and they meet twice a month on a Zoom call with like a community Zoom call. And one of those is a Q&A session, which is a ton of fun because they are continually submitting questions. And so we get those questions, and we don't have time to answer all of them, and the group answers them. But we don't have time to say all of them, so we kind of bank those up. And then, of course, just through social media, we get questions all the time, or contact form, direct message. So we kind of have this bank of questions that we just feel like from time to time we need to pull out and answer some of those questions. Now, today in particular, we're just going to do kind of one question because when we were at a recent event speaking, we started to touch on the subject of boundaries.
Right.
And it was right before a break was supposed to happen. And we were never planning to talk like in detail about boundaries. And as soon as we we kind of were like rushing, and we were like, here's a couple of boundaries that we do. These are important for your marriage. And then during the break, it was like, boom, 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 boom. We had all of these questions. Hey, can you tell us more boundaries? Give us some specifics, all of that. And so we know how important this is and I just think people don't talk about it, and the discussion is probably not healthy when it is. It's more of
uncomfortable.
There's a lot of blame, a lot of stuff that goes on with boundaries. So I actually went back and looked, and just handy little tool on our website. If you go to our website, there's and you click on our podcast. When you get to the podcast page, there's a search bar. And I actually typed in just a little while ago, I typed in boundaries, and it pulled up all of the podcast episodes that had to do with boundary. And it's been a year, actually last March, when we talked specifically about boundaries. And so some of you, this might be a refresher, but like I said, we've got lots of new listeners. And so we definitely want to.
Well, and we don't want to pretend we haven't learned anything in the past year.
Well, that's true.
There will be lots of we added 50 boundaries. It's just we've learned how important they are, and maybe some reasoning behind them, because we're constantly learning about marriage and how to do it better. And, when we talk about boundaries, I feel like the number one thing that people think is, oh, great, my spouse gets to control what I do. And I am not going to let them control me. And I'm my own person. And
I'm a grown up. I'm an adult.
Who are you to tell me what to do and what not to do? And I think that the topic of boundaries gets a bad rap because I firmly believe, 100% believe and know that if we had had some of these boundaries in place, I wouldn't have gone down the path that I went. Now, it still takes honesty. It still takes transparency, because you can say, oh, that's the boundary, and yes, I'm following it, but do your own thing. But if I had been transparent and open and been able to journey with somebody that like we have in place now, people we can be honest with, and obviously each other, we can just be honest with each other, then I don't think I could have gotten to the place that I did. So I'm passionate about boundaries. If you're a listener to us a lot, you hear us say that we still have those boundaries today, and we do. And they don't feel like you're trying to control me. They don't feel like they limit me. I just know that they're there and they're healthy, And I don't think anything of them. Like there are certain boundaries, I'm sure we'll talk about some of them, that you go, oh, that would make me uncomfortable, or that's going to make the other person uncomfortable. Don't care. My marriage is just worth it. So as we talk about these, I want you to think of them not as control, but as protection. Because if you can shift that view from, oh, I'm controlling my spouse, or they're trying to control me, and instead it's protecting our marriage. And, I think about any of you who have children, you give your children boundaries. Like you say, don't step out into the street. Why? Because they could get hit by a car. So as they're playing outside, you say, don't go past this boundary. And that boundary is set not because you're mean, or not because you don't want them to have fun, but it's there for their protection. It is there because you say, if you cross this boundary, then you're unsafe. And when we enter into a covenant relationship, God put a boundary around our marriage and said, these are the boundaries. And if you step out of those, then you're unsafe. And so that's what, as we talk about this, whether it takes just this week or next week too, think of them as protection, not as control.
That's good. And part of the thing, like going back to our story, I think that it's really important to have the actual conversation with your spouse to understand what the boundaries are, because I think there's just a lot of assumed boundaries. Yeah. And that's the way it was with us. Like, I feel like, along the way, we would hear things and hear people say, hey, it'd be a good idea if you did this, or if you didn't do this. And I think that somewhere we adopted those, or, thought we adopted those, but we never really talked about it. And so then when you're put in a situation where you're kind of getting really close to that boundary, it's like, we've never really talked about it. Is that it's not.
And this isn't specifically what we said.
Yeah, that's not that doesn't apply to this situation.
Right.
And so that's why we just believe that extreme boundaries, because if you twist this around and you start thinking, okay, these are not rules that are actually restricting us. They're safeguards to protect the thing that matters the most to us.
Yeah.
And that's really where you need to twist it. And so for those of you that have been through betrayal and broken trust like we have, there's probably some really extreme boundaries that need to be put into place. And there might even be some things that are really, really specific to you and your situation. And that's where you and your spouse have to mutually agree on those things. Because these are not, to me, there's some things that are just no-brainers for the world.
And no negotiation.
Right. And like, people should go, wait, does that apply to me? And there's some of them that's like, absolutely. But then there's some that maybe it's specific to your situation. Right. So for an example, people have probably heard us talk on here a lot about the gym, and that was an issue, and that some of the relationship that got you in trouble, that's where it sort of fostered there. And so for us, we just know that, man, like, a gym is not a great place for us.
But that doesn't mean that the gym is not a good place for you, if you're listening.
Exactly.
Because we have really, really, really good friends that, like, they go with their spouse, and it's really a strengthening thing for them. And so don't hear, oh, they don't go to the gym. Oh, the gym must be bad. You just have to make it for you.
Right.
And the other example I was thinking of is neither one of us have ever struggled with pornography. We don't have things on our computers that send emails to people if we get on a site, because that's not something that we struggle with, and it's not something that we need to have in place. Now, do we have accountability partners and things like that where we talk about things? Yes. But that's where you have to listen to these and go, what is it in my marriage that we need? Because if there's pornography, one of you has struggled with that, or any kind, something like that, broken trust in that area, then you definitely need to have those things on your computer. And so you just have to decide what it is for you. But I love that you said some of these are non-negotiables, no matter if your marriage is the best it's ever been or if there's been recent broken trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So I think that when we teach this, and if you've ever been to one of our conferences that, is more than just like a date night event, we do have an actual session where we teach this. So we teach about boundaries. We also do this at our retreats. Mm-hmm. So if you are coming to one of our retreats, you're mm-hmm. going to get a refresher.
Yep.
But these
and we can talk more personally about it then.
For sure. But just so you guys know, we kind of have these divided up into categories, and these categories, they definitely overlap mm-hmm. each other. And some of them are kind of the same thing, but we like to address them into categories. And so the first one is just the obvious, which is the interactions with the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. And so, we are really extreme here, but we also see value in this across the board, really. This one some of these feel very like, yeah, I know there's people out there that are like, oh, well, we don't apply this. And we're just saying, hey, if you want to put mm-hmm. real safeguards, guardrails, boundaries, this is the area mm-hmm. that you need to attack and put it in.
And I know, I think we've even said it on this specific episode, but you just have to talk about it mm-hmm. Because not all of these are a one size fits all. And so you have to make it work for yourself. So one of the first thing that comes to mind for me is no one-on-one time alone with friends/coworkers. And that's just, to me, it seems obvious, but it's obvious to me because I'm so passionate about it, because I think this is the number one area where I didn't lean into, or we didn't have boundaries in this area. It was just like, oh, we trust each other and everything's fine. And we had mutual friends, where we would hang out together, but then sometimes it would be, oh, I was just with the other person. Mm-hmm. And that's just it's not okay. And coworkers. Fortunately for me, I work in an environment with 95% women. And it's great. But I do have boundaries for when a man, we have 2 or 3 men that work at our school. And if they come in for some reason to my area, I always say, hey, let's step out into the hall. It's just real easy for me to do, and I don't care what other people think. And this is one area where you have to lean into, am I giving the appearance of evil? Like I never want anybody to look in to my work. Well, I'm the librarian, into my library and see me just sitting there talking to a man. Mm-hmm. It just especially with my story, it just is like, I wonder what she's doing, And so you just don't want to give the appearance of evil. Now, I will say with that, we have some very dear friends that he works with. He's a doctor and he works with lots of women nurses, and he's in rooms sometimes with just them. And so that's where the conversation has to come into place, because your job may not look like mine, mm-hmm. and you may not be blessed to work with 95% of the same sex as you. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you have to talk about, what does this look like in our situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of those are just like, okay, well, I have to meet with somebody from the opposite sex. So what does that look mm-hmm. like, and what is your spouse comfortable with? Leave the door open.
Right.
Don't, like even in my situation, if somebody from the opposite sex just walks into my office at work, I'm usually the only person there.
Right.
So we have windows that stay mm-hmm. open. Like mm-hmm. people can look in there. I don't have a closed off office. I stay in a big area that's a conference mm-hmm. room. It's just things that can protect us from anything. And just like you said, I think this one's really important. If you guys if anybody out there is listening and you have best friends that are like a couple mm-hmm. that's your best friends.
That's right.
I'm telling you, do not be alone with the one that's the opposite sex from you.
Or texting with them.
Yeah, and that's, no matter how much you love them and trust them, and both of you trust them, you just don't do it, because you know, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine this week, and like, you can't become an alcoholic if you don't ever take a drink, you know. And I'm not telling people don't take that. This is an extreme thing I'm talking about, but it just reminded me of a conversation that I had. But it's the same thing, you know. You can't develop that relationship that's a secret or emotional, that's hidden, if you don't have ways that you're making it grow into that. So those are really important.
And it's just being aware of those times, because like I can remember two things. One, I would text with the other person, just the two of us, and that's not healthy. Like, you don't do that. And then the other, I mean, like, even casually, you know, not like, oh, let me text him, but just casually asking a question or anything like that. And then the other thing that I would do is like chat in games. Like, you think it's just kind of this innocent thing. And I'm giving specifics that are embarrassing, but I wouldn't have thought about them before. I would have seen nothing wrong with them before. And so, like, if you play games on your phone and there's a chat feature and you talk to certain people, those are all areas where you just have to go, this is not healthy. It just opens the door to being able to have a conversation or make comments that you wouldn't be comfortable with your spouse seeing. And so that's right there in the friend. I know we're going to talk about, you know, electronics and all that later, but I'm just saying, in the realm of friendship, what do you do to make sure that you're always above board and keeping things out in the open?
Yeah, and these are just, you never get into an emotional sharing situation with somebody of the opposite sex, even if they're really good friends. And that's when a lot of times you would need to be, the appropriate thing would be to involve your spouse. You know, even if it's a good friend and the husband needs to talk to the wife about something, well, involve your spouse. So that everybody's comfortable.
And it's just one of those things where if you get an email or a conversation with somebody that you work with, like, it's okay to say, hope you had a great weekend, or, you know, something like that, but you're always keeping it professional. It's always professional, because then if somebody says, oh, did you have a great weekend? Or what did y'all do? And then you start getting into the, oh, well, we did this and then back and forth. And that's inviting relational conversation versus professional conversation.
So let's talk for a second. Just, you were starting to touch on digital boundaries, but I mean, this is one it's a no-brainer to me. There should be no passwords that are not shared with your spouse. I mean, everybody needs passwords. Like, we have passwords on our phone. Our passwords are the same for my phone and her phone. Our computers have it too, because nobody wants their stuff stolen. And if your stuff's stolen, you don't.
Or you have little kids and you don't want them on your phone.
So we're not saying don't have passwords. We're just saying that it needs to be shared openly. There's no secrets. I mean, even your different accounts, and, you know, if you have social media and stuff like that, there's nothing hidden. And even to the point where, don't always like be so secretive about your phone. Like, leave it out. Yeah, protective. That's it. Like, leave it out for your spouse, or just put it away. It doesn't always have to be in your hand or in your pocket. And just to make sure that there's just this openness about that. You know, here's the other thing. If you're deleting a text,
why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, even if it's just like, ooh, like this one might, you know, there's nothing there, but this one might hurt her feelings, or she might wonder why this person's texting me. No, I'm telling you, if you have deleted a text, you are already playing with fire. And you may think, oh, it's no big deal, because now I don't have to deal with it. No, it is, you are getting close to crossing a line. If you're deleting text, hiding messages, you know, if you have any sort of an account that your spouse doesn't know about on social media or these gaming things like you mentioned. So yeah, definitely these are all just that this is the slippery slope. And it's a slippery slope that's real slippery. Doesn't take long.
It doesn't. It doesn't, because it you can convince yourself that it's so innocent. Like I can remember conversations that I had with myself that were like, it's not a big deal. He's a friend. It's funny. It's, we're just messing around. It's just, he's a good friend. He's our friend. He was your friend, whatever, and then it's like, and you just kind of convince yourself that it's okay.
Yep.
And then the next step, and I love that you said slippery slope, because it wasn't even a purposeful step. It's just, I just was sliding down this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, until it wasn't.
Yep. And I would also throw in here for the digital boundaries, if you've had trouble with pornography, that this is the time to communicate together and put some sort of software on your phone or on your computer, both, or whatever, something like the Covenant Eyes. And we don't have a lot of experience in that because it's not something that we've struggled with. But maybe part of the reason why we don't struggle with it is because everything's just kind of open for each other. But we know ministries that are directly, this is a big part of, this is their story. So I would even throw out here, because I'll mention them, but if you go to the Liberator podcast, some friends of ours that have a ministry that's specifically about pornography. So check that out, and if you need to reach out to them to find some specific, what they would recommend for something like this,
because it is their story, and they've made that their whole ministry.
Yeah.
So,
and I would ask this question to anybody. We'll wrap up this section with that. But if your spouse picked up your phone right now, what kind of emotions does that stir in you? Do you get nervous? Does your heart beat a little bit faster? Would it be one of those things where you think, well, whatever she or he looks at, it's going to strengthen our trust, or is this going to strain our trust? But really, the question is, for what I'm asking is, if your spouse picks up your phone, what emotional response to that do you have? And so that's a good gauge of what's going on.
Because I can remember when I was in those 3 months of living a lie, I would panic if you even got close to my phone or said, hey, can you show me this, or can I get this? Or my heart would race, and I would be, oh gosh, like, did I delete? Did I cover? Did I leave open? All of the things. And now, I don't react at all. Like, there's just, nothing that I would worry at all about you seeing or reading or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I know we're kind of running out of time of what we would normally stick to. Most of y'all don't care how long these things go, but this next one, so we talked about opposite sex, we talked about digital boundaries, and then the work in the social boundaries. A lot of these are the same as the opposite sex, because you're talking about how to handle opposite sex work relationships. Right. But I do think one of the things to point out here is, because I think that people can separate sometimes, and they think, oh, well, it doesn't apply to work necessarily because I have to travel, I have to go places with members of the opposite sex, I have to have lunch meetings. I'm just saying that for us, there would not be a time where we would travel alone in a car, even from point A to point B, with somebody from the opposite sex, unless there was somebody else in the car with us. And, even for me, I would be extremely uncomfortable, even if for some reason I was getting in a car to go to lunch and there were 3 women in, I'd like that would, oh gosh, I would feel so uncomfortable. So, for us, we would just say, just don't even do it. If there's a group and you're all in the car together, understandable.
There's accountability there.
Yeah, and same with lunch meetings. Like, I feel weird being in public if I'm having to have lunch and it's a small group of people and there's women, but that's just us because of our story. But I would never, even at a business type lunch meeting, just take another lady to talk to another lady, even if it was an interview or I just wouldn't do it. And so those are really crucial. The if you're hiding a friendship with a coworker, or late night text, even if they're work related, it's just dangerous. It's a dangerous place to be. And I know that sometimes those texts have to happen because of work, but they have to be professional. They have to be, you can show your spouse and your spouse is comfortable. Even to the point where if you feel like, I don't know, I need to show you, and your spouse can say, no, that makes me uncomfortable. That's just building safety and building trust. Yeah. And it needs to stay that way.
And one of the things in this area that I want to say quickly is, if and you've heard me say before, don't even go to the coffee pot. And what that means is, when you're getting ready in the morning, does the thought occur to you, oh, I have to look good for this person? Or do I dress for this person? And if the answer is yes, that is a huge red flag. And you need to take that to the Lord and go, okay, God, what's going on in me that this is happening? I didn't work with either one. I didn't work with any of the relationships that were inappropriate for me. But what I do remember thinking is, oh, when I go to the gym, do I look my best? This can be attention from anybody, I'm not just talking about
specific.
Yeah, not somebody specific. But if it's like, am I trying to gain attention when I go to work, when I go to the coffee pot? Who am I trying to look good for? Or am I seeking attention from the opposite sex in general? And we all want to look our best, and we all want to do a good job. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with looking your best. You want to look good and professional and all of those things, because that's a whole nother talk. But anyway, if you're doing it for attention and to gain attention from anybody besides your spouse, then you're in dangerous territory.
Yep. Okay, last thing, and we'll wrap up with this. This is kind of the entertainment and media, and I think that this has to do with stuff that you do like individually, and things that you're doing together as a couple, because a lot of times the things that entertain you are the things that actually shape your desires. And so, you think about the things that you watch on TV. Look, you can say whatever you want to say about the whole Bachelor and the Bachelorette
You're going to have to pick a new example. Well, that's not as big anymore.
I know, but I know people still watch it. But it was it was a part of our story. Yeah. And so because it just desensitizes you to what godly and biblical marriage and relationships.
And there's so many newer shows out there now that do that.
Same thing. And that's right.
And not just reality things like that, but shows in general. Do they desensitize the value of marriage, or do they put priority on that? And you can say what you want to, like, oh, I know it's just fiction and I know it's fake, but what goes in comes out. And so you just have to be very, very careful with what you're putting into your mind and into your heart. That's literally biblical.
When we watch TV shows that have some sort of, some sex scene or something, we look like junior high kids that are watching TV with their parents. I put my hands over my eyes. You have the remote control. You control it, and fast forward through it, because we just don't allow that. And if I'm ever watching a show, because I do travel sometimes, and I'm on a bus a lot of times with a soccer team, and so if I'm watching a show and I feel like it's a little bit of a pattern. Sometimes one thing will happen and I can skip through it. But if I find it, I'll stop it. Even if I think this is
the
something.
Whole show.
Yeah, I'll stop the show. But it might be one that I say, this is one that we need to watch together, because I don't want you to ever think, you watched this?
Right.
Same with books. I mean, we are very open with each other. We read things, and a lot of times we'll say, oh, that was a really good book. You should read it. But if we just don't like books that reference sex and especially affairs and stuff. And you'll even come to me and say, I don't think you want to read this book because it has an affair in it, and I don't want it to trigger you. And so you're really sensitive to that. And we just talk about it.
Yep.
And I mean, that's the important thing, is just making sure that we're not doing anything that's going to make us desire something because of what's entertaining us.
Right. That's right. Yep.
All right. Anything else on the boundaries? I feel like we could talk about it forever, and I think that people could listen to it forever because people don't really talk about it enough. And so I just think the question to wrap this all up is to just say, are you becoming the spouse that you would want to be married to? That's how you can get to, are we trustworthy in this area?
Yeah. My favorite thing, and if you don't mind, I'll end with this. It says that we read this somewhere. Healthy boundaries don't put walls between you. They build a fortress around you. And Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
It's good. That's a great way to end. All right, gang. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Peace.
Peace.